I'm Kirby Allison, and I love helping the well-dressed acquire and care for their wardrobes. Join me as we explore the world of quality, craftsmanship, and tradition. Hi, I'm Kirby Allison, and we love to help the well-dressed acquire and care for their wardrobes. I'm here with two of my favorite people in London, Mr. Edward Sahakian and Eddie Sahakian, two of certainly the most best-dressed, friendly, and well-known cigar merchants here in London. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. You know, one of the things that has always fascinated me is just the stories behind quality craftsmanship and tradition. And these two gentlemen right here have some of the best stories I've ever heard. So, thank you for sitting down with me and for us, being able to talk through some of that.
It's a pleasure. May I call you Kirby?
Please, please.
And please call me Edward. It'll make life easier.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to be here in London. Such a beautiful day as well.
It's quite inordinary for London.
I'm quite looking forward to our discussion or chat. Yeah. Before I do that, do I have your permission to light up a cigar?
Please. I mean, this is one of my favorite places to smoke in London.
And can I offer you one as well?
Please, please. What do we have?
It's one of my favorite morning cigars.
Okay.
The Davidoff No. 2, mild, smooth, easy smoke. It's got a smaller ring gauge, so it's not overpowering. And as I had a nice breakfast, as you know, it will complement the morning very well.
A great start to the day. Yeah. So, Mr. Sahakian, I mean, how did you get into cigars? I mean, here you are, Davidoff of London, has been on this shop corner, for the better part of how many years?
For just under 40 years.
Just under 40 years. But how did you first, become interested in smoking cigars?
My history of smoking goes back to my age of 16. I was 16 years old.
Officially.
And at the time I was living in Iran. There was a shop I used to pass by going to school. In the window they had a pipe. It was an oval-shaped pipe. I just saw it and fell in love with it. I managed to collect enough pocket money and the courage to walk into that shop one day. I bought the pipe, and that was the beginning of a long journey for me in enjoying a fine tobacco product, being a pipe or a cigar. Mm-hmm. I smoked the pipe for a number of years and think must have been 23, 24 years old, and by chance I was given a box of Portuguese cigars I remember so well. A friend of mine, he had just come from Lebanon, and he said, "Edward, I have a box of cigars for you." I said, no, I don't smoke cigars, I only smoke pipes. He said, "No, but you must smoke it, it's very nice, you'll enjoy it." It was early in the morning, it was, thank you, Eddie. It must have been like 10:30 in the morning. Out of courtesy to him, I had a coffee and lit up the Portuguese cigar. And after 3-4 puffs, I felt that if I continue, I'm going to be sick. I put the cigar down discreetly and didn't touch it again for a number of months. This went on for a while until one day I realized I'd run out of pipe tobacco. I had a nice lunch. After lunch, I sat down in my office. I opened the drawer to take my pipe and tobacco out to enjoy it. Didn't have the tobacco. Whilst I was looking for the pipe tobacco, I found the box of cigar again. I said, well, I'll have another go at it. I lit up the cigar, and it was really enjoyable. I enjoyed it. What a difference between the first and second smoke. And the same friend of mine who had given me the box of cigar, he came back one day, a month later. He said, "Oh, Edward, did you smoke the cigar? Did you like it?" I said, "To be honest, the first one was terrible. It made me nearly sick. But the second one, I really enjoyed it. When I had lunch, I smoked that." He said, "Well, cigar, usually you should smoke after you had something to eat. Never smoke a cigar on an empty stomach." That was my first lesson in enjoying a fine cigar. And from there on, I just started smoking cigars. Within my travels, I had heard the name Davidoff, Davidoff shop in Geneva. I made a point of visiting the shop. I was served by Zino Davidoff himself.
Wow.
And I said, I want a cigar, strong, mild. I said, well, no. From the experience I had from the particles, I said, no, I don't want anything too strong. So then you should have the Davidoff number 2, which is exactly what we're smoking now.
What we're smoking today. It's a
And
beautiful
my
draw.
love affair started from there with the Davidoff and the Davidoff number 2 in particular. It's a mild, smooth, easy cigar, and it reminds me of my first experience with Zino.
What a great story. You know, at this time you were still living in Iran. You know, you were smoking, cigars, kind of casually traveling for work. You know, how did you go from there to, being here in London
And selling cigars.
and actually selling cigars?
God, that is a bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. You know, when we had our revolution in 1979, and I was in London at the time, it was Christmas, end of 78, it was the Christmas time, and I brought the family over to London thinking it would be a good opportunity to spend Christmas here, and things will settle down back home and we will go back. Whilst we were here for our Christmas, we celebrated our Armenian Christmas on the 6th of January, so extended our stay a bit longer. And whilst that was happening, we had the news that our businesses back in Iran, which included breweries, we had 3 breweries there. With the revolution there, they had attacked the breweries, they had set fire to the breweries, they had set fire to cinemas, they had set fire to nightclubs.
Okay.
And the word was, it won't be safe to come back at the moment. And with that, the first thing I needed to do was to make sure I had permission to stay in this country. I went, asked a friend of mine, he was a bank manager, to recommend a solicitor who would help me out in things I should do and not do. And I met a very nice young gentleman. He had just graduated from Cambridge. His name was William Hurd. And he gave me some very good and solid and practical advice. And whilst he was giving me advice, I took my pen out to make note of what he was saying. And he said, no need to write anything down. I'll have the printed papers. I'll present it to you. He gave me 3-4 pages of do's and don'ts. And you shouldn't have any problem if you follow these instructions. I thanked him. And as it was a custom in our country, you don't leave the offices of a doctor or a solicitor before you pay. And I offered to pay him, or I asked him, should I pay your secretary or at the entrance? He said, well, no, really, I haven't done much at all. There's no charge. Felt very embarrassed, and I said, well, at least allow me to invite you for a spot of lunch. And we had a spot of lunch not too far from here, Berry Street in Wilton's.
Oh, wow.
At that time, Wilton's used to be in Berry Street, which was one of the finest fish restaurants.
It's one of my favorite restaurants just across the street from here.
And we started our lunch. It was Mr. Sahakian and Mr. Hurd. And by the time we finished our lunch and a bottle of wine, and we had just come to the brandy and the coffee and the cigars, it was Edward and William. And at that moment, as I was doing now, preparing the cigar, he turned around. He said, "Edward, have you thought of what you're going to do if you're not allowed to go back to your country?" And I was surprised. I said, "What a strange question. Of course I'm going back. We left everything, our home, our businesses, our lives, everything there. Of course I'm going back. It might be 6 months, it might be a year, but we're going back." But he was wiser than that, much wiser. He said, "Well, let's presume you were not able to go back. You're far too young to retire. Is there anything you like, any hobbies?" And as he's asking me this question, I'm preparing this cigar, cutting it to offer to him to smoke. And I just looked at him I said, what would I like to do? It's like asking a little boy, when you grow up, would you want to have a chocolate factory or be a fireman? I said, no, what I'd love to do is have a cigar shop to sell these cigars, like the shop in Geneva, the Davidoff shop there. You walk inside, you have the cigars on the shelves and all the products or the accessories. The next thing I know, he took out his pen, he's making a note. Said, what is the name of that shop? I said, Davidoff. Said, I'll write a letter to see if they want to open a shop here. I said, no, William, we're just talking about dreams now. I wouldn't even have a clue what to do, where to start. He persisted. He wrote a letter. The first time it was negative, the reply. The second time he didn't give up. He sent a letter directly to the president of the company. Next thing we know, we're talking to the president of Davidoff. He came to London. He invited us to go to Geneva, to Basel, to have another chat. And within a year, I was opening a shop.
Here on this corner?
On this corner, it was, and the shop actual opening day was 29th of May, 1980.
Wow, amazing. Eddie, do you remember this as kind of a young boy?
I do, yes. At the time I was almost 8. Cigars and the enjoyment of tobacco cigars had always been around me at home. My father, in those days you could drive in a car, have the roof open and light up a cigar. No one would look twice. So the aroma was always in my nose. And I remember going into my father's study and seeing beautiful pipes laid out, and the pipe jars and the humidors and cigars, and it was always of curiosity to me. Yeah. Fascinated. So when the shop opened, it seemed like a very natural development to my eyes, and I remember early days coming here, exploring the goodies. I was born a pyromaniac, so the delight to find boxes of matches that I could buy.
Of course. It's a miracle that it hasn't burnt down.
Well, truly.
I still have a whole bag of matches he used to collect when he was a little boy.
Oh, really?
His mom confiscated it for a while, so
rather prudently.
Until he grows up. Then at one point we were going to give it to him, but then the grandchildren came along, so it's back with us again.
Oh, boy.
And I remember buying my first pipe here, and then slowly, certain holidays, Christmas and so on, we would come and help make the cartons to hold the cigars, because, of course, those days, Christmas was an extremely busy period. And so it was in the blood, and I was exposed to the shop regularly.
I have to tell you the story of a pipe he bought.
Okay.
He was a little boy, and he came, it was a Saturday, and he was hovering around. We still had that basket there full of, we call them reject pipes, and we were selling it at the time for £12. And Eddie chose me and said, Dad, can I buy this? I said, yes, you have pocket money, it will be £12. Fine, we did the transaction, and off he went. A few months later, he was back in the shop. In the meantime, for some reason, the prices of the pipes had gone up. But I think when the budget had come out, we had the new VAT, whatever. So the pipes became £14. And Eddie's looking around. He says, Dad, these pipes, I paid £12. I said, yes. He said, well, it's £14. I said, yeah, it's gone up, Eddie. Can I bring my pipe back and get £14? He's on the right track.
Eddie, what's your first memory of kind of sharing a cigar with your father?
Oh, I remember it very well. In fact, exactly where we're sitting right now, and exactly the same cigar. At the time, I was 16, and the cigar we smoked was a number 2, admittedly a Cuban number 2. But my father called me in, it was a Saturday, I think, and came in. It was a bit mysterious.
Now, let me tell the backstory of that, then you continue. The day before, Eddie's mom, Greta, going through his pockets, which she does regularly, not does anymore, but did. We found all sorts of
She continues to do it with you.
She continued doing it with me. Among the items that she had discovered was a lighter in his pocket. And hysterical came to me, Eddie is smoking. I said, how do you know? I found this lighter. I said, well, it doesn't mean that he's smoking if he has a lighter. No, I'm sure he does. You have to have a word with him. I said, okay, I'll have a word with him Saturday. I don't want you to be present because we don't want to create this situation into a scenario. I'll have a word with him, don't worry. Eddie, come to the shop Saturday morning. I want to talk to you. Now you continue.
So here we are. It's that morning. Now, just so everyone knows, it was a Zippo my mother found. And at that point in London, it was very fashionable to have Zippos and play around with Zippos and light them in multiple ways. So this is why I had the Zippo. I definitely wasn't a smoker at the time. I quite enjoyed my sports. So anyway, so here I come. I sit down and Dad, everything okay? He goes, well, takes out a number 2, cuts it. I said, okay, he's going to have his cigar. And he gives it to me. I'm like, oh, what's this? Actually, you even lit it for me. Here you go, son, here's your cigar. So, well, I don't really smoke that. He goes, well, whether you smoke or not, doesn't matter. If you're going to smoke...
No, I said, I know you smoke. And if you are going to smoke, you might as well smoke the best. He was sitting here and I was standing right in front of him. And I was like, you have to smoke this.
So there I was, given my first proper cigar and smoked it.
Did you have an experience similar to your father?
No, I didn't get sick, but I can honestly tell you it didn't grab me. I didn't go, wow, this is wonderful.
It was 10 o'clock in the morning, by the way.
10 o'clock,
About this
same time.
This time of the day on a Saturday.
You know,
Hadn't given him breakfast, you know?
No, he'd got a bollocking, but no breakfast.
And I think I survived it and didn't really have another cigar until my early 20s when it was much more, my palate had matured. I think at the age of around 21, 22, I came back and worked with my father in London. I'd done some studies in the US at university, hadn't finished my studies there because I was enjoying myself too much. So my father had called me back and said, enough money wasting there, come and pay me back by working in the shop, which he was absolutely right to do. And that's when I really took to cigars. And this was in the early 90s, so we were just entering the cigar boom, with Cigar Aficionado being launched and the huge new interest that we saw in the US trickled through globally. So it was a great time to be in the shop. I mean, we were meeting not just celebrities and interesting people like that, but just the volume of interest, media level, all walks of life, people coming in.
So did you have any expectations of Eddie to join the business, or?
Not really, no. I mean, for me, it all started as a joke, as a hobby with my solicitor, and then it continued that he was going to school with his sister. They were pursuing their own career, and I had an opportunity to get a long lease of the shop, which was 25 years. So I bought the 25-year lease of the shop. I calculated I would probably be in my 60s when it comes to an end. Perfect. Children have grown up. They're doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. And I've done my life. Now I'll have some time to enjoy myself, and the lease will finish. And it was fine. Everything went along to plan until we got nearer to the last couple of years of the lease, and I realized I'm not ready really to retire yet. Eddie was, by then, he had graduated, he was working for a bank. I would have loved him to be with me, but it was a very selfish thought. However, circumstances changed. We came up to the 2008 markets that crashed. Eddie, the bank he was working for was RBS, and he was in a department doing
structured credit.
Structured credit. It's one of the things that created the crash, apparently.
Way more interesting than structured credit.
We were in the eye of the storm, so to speak. Yeah.
And one day he called me and said, Dad, I'm going back home. I've just been made redundant. The whole department is closed down. A few weeks went by. And I said, Eddie, any thoughts of coming and helping me, perhaps? Oh, Dad, no, I'm looking for other jobs. I don't think so, thank you. I said, okay. Another month or two went by. I said, Eddie, I need some help. Whilst you're looking for a job, come and help me out, and then see how it goes. I knew he had it in him. I knew he would enjoy it. And it was like duck to water. You know, the first day we walked here, well, he used to come and spend some time in the shop anyway, so he was familiar with it. But as he started to come in, every time a younger customer would walk in, it was automatically Eddie looking after them. And next thing I know, he was doing a great job. I said, Eddie, please, can you stay? Because if you don't stay, I'm going to really retire now.
I mean, whenever I'm in London, this is one of my first stops. I've got a humidor full of cigars in my office, that I enjoy. But really, whenever I come to London, it's an opportunity, really an experience to be able to buy the cigars I'm going to smoke here, from you two, from this humidor. And it's really how I got to know both of you. I mean, coming in, I think one of the things that really makes Davidoff of London, this shop, so unique is that, there's always a familiar and friendly face. I mean, one of you, for the most part, is always here working the shop floor.
I'm very happy with the relationship we have. I have to say, it's a father and son working together. It could be a wonderful outcome. It could be disastrous. I'm sure there are many, many examples of fathers and sons not getting along, and at the end it creates a lot of frictions. On the other hand, it also, if it's done properly, it could be a wonderful relationship. I worked with my father, I worked for my father, and he taught me everything. As Eddie says, he taught me everything I knew, but not everything he knew. And I'm trying to do the same with Eddie. I'm very cautious. If he takes a decision which I think it's wrong, or maybe I know it's wrong, I let him carry on with it and live with the consequences. That's the best way of teaching somebody a mistake, to let them do it and go through it. I'm sure Eddie one day will have a similar relationship with his son, young Elvis.
What do you think that your father's taught you most? That he's kind of passed down.
It has to be watching my father, the way he conducts himself in life, in work, and it's always the same. You think sometimes people put on a front, they're very courteous or very sweet in their work environment, and then they go home and they're a monster. Not at all with my father. The way he treats any customer who walks into the store is the way he treats anyone he meets in life, is the way he treats anyone in his family, is the way he treats strangers. And I think that says a lot about how you live your life and how you want to be seen. But Dad doesn't do it, I think, to be noticed. Dad does it because it's the way he is. And that's been a wonderful example for me, because there's times you meet difficult customers, there's times you're impatient, there's times you're frustrated, the burdens of life come down upon you. And then I always look at my father and say, well, with everything he's gone through, and he's been through a lot, he's always smiled, he's always had a kind word for a stranger, he's always had a welcome for someone visiting, even when he didn't have time. If he can do it, there's no reason I can't do it. No better.
Eddie's being modest. He could do it, and he does do it much better than I do.
Well, we'll disagree on that one.
No, he does. And, with his being younger, with his knowledge, with his experience, he's doing a by far better job than I have done or I could do.
Yeah.
And with time, exactly, I'm very proud of him. He doesn't let me be too idle. He always throws something at me to do. But
that's great. So as two gentlemen, that have been in this industry and have certainly become to know so many lovers of cigars, how would you capture, really the essence of a cigar? Because I feel that a cigar is so much more than just tobacco to smoke. How would you, you know, whenever you look at these, how do you think of them?
I'm sure Eddie will have his own interpretation of that, but I always describe a cigar as an instrument of pleasure and friendship. It does give you pleasure, no doubt about that. It creates friendships. Amount of times, either I'm standing outside or in an airport, any place in the world. If we're not allowed to smoke indoors, but I always get a chance to step outside, have a few puffs on my cigar. Within 2, 3, 4 minutes, there's somebody standing on my left, another person on the right. They're also smoking cigars, and we're chatting. And one of them is from Alaska, the other one is from South America, the other one is from China, and we're just crossing each other in that street in front of the airport, and we have a chat. And from that chat, friendships begin. Months later, I get an email or a phone call or a letter or a postcard. It's an instrument of pleasure and friendship. But I'm sure Eddie could add to that as well.
No, that's beautifully put. I couldn't agree more. You know, we sometimes we can overthink what a cigar is when you're describing its physical characteristics, but its emotive, its nostalgic qualities are extraordinary. There's many occasions where a non-cigar smoker will walk into our shop and go, and you can see they're being transported to their childhood. Their father, their grandfather, someone significant in their life who perhaps enjoyed cigars or tobacco. And I think for many people, the waft of a beautiful cigar is a backdrop to their life. You don't have to be a smoker to appreciate and love cigars. Likewise, we step far away from smokers in the world of cigarette smoking, which is an addiction driven by nicotine, a chemical addiction. You know, cigars are certainly not an addiction, and if someone takes the trouble, the expense, the time to enjoy a cigar, it says a lot about their qualities. To use a tired word perhaps as a gentleman, but really they share qualities that we appreciate, that we value. 9 times out of 10 it's true.
Yeah. I really see it as a commitment to time, best enjoyed and shared in good company. And so thank you, gentlemen. This has been an absolutely splendid cigar. I appreciate you sharing this with us and sharing your story. And most of all, I really appreciate both of your commitment to quality craftsmanship and tradition, and passing this on to the rest of us.
Thank you. And if I could just add what Dr. Schneider used to say, smoke less, but smoke the best. Smoke Davidoff. Here we are.
It certainly gets no better. So thank you, guys.
Kirby, thank you so much as well.
Mr. Sahakian, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I always look forward to your visits, Kirby. Thank you.
Well, it's one of my favorite places to be here in London. And, there's never a trip I come to London where I don't have the pleasure of coming in and saying hello. So, thank you all for your friendship and for entertaining me.